Where are you from?
From Britain. Right. Sorry about that. I'm just figuring out some stuff here. I apologize for any rookie mistakes. This will be my first event I'll be hosting, but would you like to start? We have a pretty sizable audience at the moment. Oh. Dr. Hovind, can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, hello,
Can you
hello.
hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear somebody if you're talking to me.
Yeah, no, I am. Okay, would you like to start? Is that okay?
I talk a lot. When they find my jawbone, they're going to think I was a woman.
All right, sounds good.
Are you ready to start?
Yes, I am. I
Okay, let
think
me
we
get
should
to
go
the
ahead.
right one then.
Perfect.
There. Okay, tell me when to start, what to say.
Yeah, no, so yeah, let's start then. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PNR, the largest online religion and philosophy forums on Discord and in the world. We're glad you could join us, and we would like to welcome for the second time on PNR, Dr. Ken Hovind. We're so glad and honored you can join us today to be hosting you for this Q&A and potentially some back and forth with the audience members, if that's okay with you. We'll be taking assorted questions from a philosophically and religiously diverse audience. However, we would like to remind the audience that questions ought to remain topical, respectful, and concise. Any irrelevant, long-winded, and disrespectful comments or questions will get you removed from stage and banned from the audience. Please let's be considerate to Dr. Hovind and his time. And also, we would like to get to as many questions as we can. So please try to keep it as brief as possible. With that out of the way, Dr. Hovind, thank you so much for coming on. Could you just please briefly introduce your background and your work for those who may not have heard of you before?
Oh, sure. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yep. My name's Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist preacher 49 years, and I was a high school science and math teacher for 15 years. And in 1989, I started a ministry called Creation Science Evangelism, defending the Bible as being scientifically accurate. The Bible teaches the earth is about 6,000 years old, and God made everything in 6 days, which would mean dinosaurs had to live with Adam and Eve. And that's exactly what it was. So I've done 337 debates now with atheists at universities. I'll take on anybody you've got in the world all at the same time, if I get half the time and there's no interrupting. One topic at a time. There is no evidence for this evolution theory, none. Evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of the world. And if you're going to talk about politics, you better talk about how evolution has influenced politics. This dumb theory that we're just an animal is what motivated Adolf Hitler to kill off the inferiors. I have a whole video series, $50 for 18 hours. You can get the whole thing on drdino.com. My video number 5, The Dangers of Evolution, is what made him come arrest me and put me in prison for absolutely no crime whatsoever. We can talk about that if you'd like. But yeah, I believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago. And evolution is real stupid and real dangerous. So if anybody's got some evidence for it, bring it on. We'll take them all on. Okay?
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Hovind. And if it's all right with you, we will begin taking questions from the audience. There's quite a few people that would like to ask you questions, but please, to everyone in the audience, try to keep it as brief as you can. We would like to get through as many as can. I believe we have you for an hour and a half, if that's okay. So yeah, so I guess we will proceed. The first question from Lols. You can go ahead, join.
Um, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can
I
hear
hear you
you.
fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question regarding to sort of Christianity in general. So how do you go from sort of, or do you think there's an argument that goes from the falsity of evolution to um God creating the earth and everything in it to therefore Christianity is true? Because it seems like those things are compatible with a whole range of other hypotheses that aren't Christianity.
Well, yeah, obviously, everything that's taught can't be true. Somebody's wrong. Maybe all of them are wrong. But I think if you look at it from a logical perspective, I would say this ink pen had a designer. It would be totally illogical to say nobody made this. Now, who made it and when? Well, we could probably do some research and find out, but it did have a designer. I think if you look at the world, especially when you study science and see biology or anatomy or anything in real science, you're going to say, man, this had a designer. One single cell in your body is more complex than the space shuttle, most complex machine ever built by man. And one cell in your body is more complicated than that. And you got 100 trillion cells in your body. For anybody to think that evolved by chance shows either they're totally brainwashed or extremely stupid. It had to have a designer. If this had a designer, one cell in your body certainly had a designer. So if somebody wishes to believe, capital B, believe, that they came from an amoeba or something, that's fine, but that's not science. Now, as far as Christianity versus other religions, that's a different topic, but is there a God that created the world? I think the evidence is overwhelming. There has to be a God. Now, which one? Is it Allah, Buddha, Jehovah? That becomes a different argument. But some people can't get over the first hump. They think the world made itself for no reason out of nothing with the Big Bang. And they think the whole universe fit in a dot. I'll show you. Yep, the whole universe fit in a dot smaller than a period. Here you go. Cosmic evolution, the Big Bang. Time, space, matter all began with the Big Bang in a fraction of a second. The universe grew from smaller than a single atom to bigger than a galaxy. This is the European Space Agency. These folks are retarded for believing such a dumb thing. This is propaganda, is all it is. It is not physically possible. They can believe that, they can teach that, and they can put it in print, and they might get a degree for doing, agreeing with the modus operandi that everybody's going along with here. But this idea that the whole universe was in a dot smaller than an atom, do they stop and think? You can't squeeze a cup of water into a dot smaller than an atom, let alone the whole Pacific Ocean. So I think that if you start off and say, let's narrow off the options, creation, evolution. Evolution's off the table. It is not possible. Somebody had to make the world. Now, if somebody made this world, is it logical they did it for a reason? And maybe they left behind a record of why they did it. What do they want? If there's a God who made this place, then he owns it, and he can make the rules. And I would think, if our state passes a law that says the speed limit is 50 miles an hour on this road, there are three things they always do. They publish the law. They publish, hey, we passed a new law Saturday night. The speed limit's now 50. Okay. They post it. They put up a sign, speed limit 50. And they preserve it. If somebody knocks the sign down, go put another sign up. Because they can't give tickets or fines or arrest somebody for breaking a law that nobody knew about. So if God made this world and he's going to be the judge one day, it's logical and probably even mandatory that he tell us what the rules are. What do you want, God? And what happens if we don't obey? And how do we get forgiveness if we do disobey? And so I am firmly convinced, after studying this 55 years, God made the world in 6 days. He preserved a record in the Bible. All these years, we have a record. God told us he did it all in 6 days. And I taught biology 15 years. There are millions of symbiotic relationships. Certain plants require certain animals to pollinate them, and vice versa. The animals and plants, or the animals and animals, there's a symbiotic relationship. There are millions of them. It cannot have evolved by chance. So I take the logical position that there has to be a God, and he wrote a book, and I believe it's in the Bible. Now, I'm not asking everybody to pay for that to be taught in public schools. Those who believe the illogical position of evolution are demanding that we all pay for their religion to be taught in our schools. Evolution's a religion, nothing science about it. They make these family trees like this one here. Oh, yes, the humans and the birds and the reptiles and the ladybugs have a common ancestor. It's not science. That's a religious belief. They drew a bunch of lines on paper between different pictures and called it science and put it in a science book. I'm sorry, it's not science. That's a religious belief. And if they want it, I don't care what they believe, but I care that they call it science and they make everybody pay to have that taught to the kids growing up, because the kids are going to see this propaganda year after year after year. It's in all the textbooks. Look at this family tree. Humans and pine trees have a common ancestor. This is stupid, real stupid. Tell them all I said so, and I'll debate them all on the topic, okay? This is not science. So if they wish to believe that, fine, but it should not be in science class. It's polluting our science textbooks, and it should not be government funded, that's for sure. The reason it is, there's a political reason behind this. Because the guys that started this country back in 1776, they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain rights. Where do rights come from? The guys who started this country said rights come from the creator. Now, they were not all Christian, but a lot of them were, and they were certainly influenced by Christianity when they started this country. But if evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong? Where's the standard for right and wrong? I've asked atheists all over the place. I say, would it be wrong for you to go next door and kill your neighbor's baby and eat it? They say, oh, yeah. Well, the lion does it to the zebra all the time. Is that wrong? Why don't you go out there in Africa and stop every lion trying to hunt the zebras? If man is just an animal, and that's what these books teach, man is nothing but an animal. Here it is, a tree of life, with man just another one of the living things. This is not science. This is propaganda. And it's a foundation for a lot of bad political programs. Communism, socialism, Nazism, the New World Order, pinky in the brain kind of stuff. We're going to take over the world. So I think evolution is not just dumb, it's real dangerous. And I'll stand my ground on that. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Hovind.
Yeah, so, oh, sorry.
Is it okay if Loz asks you a follow-up question, or would you like to proceed to another question? All right, so go ahead, Loz.
You can contact our ministry, drdino.com, D-R-D-I-N-O. I take questions all day, every day, so sure, anytime.
Yeah, my question didn't concern evolution or creation or anything like that. I'm happy to grant that evolution is false and all that. That's fine, right? So my question didn't concern evolution. But I'm saying that once we grant that evolution is false and there is a God that created the world and all that, it seems like in my view, at least, is an infinite amount of hypotheses still on the table that are not Christianity. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of the hypotheses like aesthetic deism, or an evil God, that God created the world and just wants, the worst possible world or something like that. And it seems like those things are compatible with the falsity of evolution and creation and all that. So I'm just asking if you have an argument that goes from the falsity of evolution to and God existing to therefore Christianity is true. So just to be clear, I'm not talking about evolution. I'm happy to grant that that's false.
That's why I said that first you got to get over the first bump. Is there a God? Yes or no? And if you agree, now there's a God. Okay, now we got to argue which God, how long ago, how old is the earth? And is this book right? Is the Book of Mormon right? Which book is right? There's a lot of religions out there, no question, thousands and thousands of them. And they all claim they're right, of course, okay? That's standard, has been for years. I believe, after my study, both in science and in the religions, that Christianity is the true. Jesus Christ was God in the flesh. He came down, God himself became a man and allowed them to crucify him for very good reasons, which we could spend an hour on. There are only two basic religions in the whole world, and that's Cain and Abel. Cain brought his fruit and vegetables in Genesis chapter 4. Hey, God, look what I did for you. God wouldn't take it. Abel brought a sacrifice. That shows the seriousness of sin. When you disobey, it's a death penalty to God. Somebody has to die. I mean, one infraction is a death penalty. It has to be to have a perfect, holy, righteous God. If he let us into his heaven like we are, we would wreck that place like we've wrecked this one down here. We pretty well wrecked this world, and he doesn't want that up in heaven. So it's the death penalty. And for 1,500 years, the Jews tried so hard to obey God's 10 commandments, only to realize we can't do this. So Jesus Christ, God himself, I believe, came down in the form of a man, lived a perfect life, never broke one law, never committed one sin, and his blood shed on that cross pays for my sins. So I have not only a written record that I go on, and it matches that, I have a personal testimony. It happened to me. He changed me. He moved inside and started changing me from the inside. Most political parties change their citizens from the outside with rules or prison or whatever, beat them, whatever they got to do. It's an external, conform to our rules. With real Christianity, it's internal. I want to please God. He's in my heart. I want to please him. So I'd much rather have a group of people that have that attitude, man, I want to do right, rather than I'm going to do wrong if I can, if they don't catch me. As long as they don't get caught. It's a totally different philosophy of life. So I believe biblical Christianity, and even that is split up into 400 denominations. I would take it further. I'm a Baptist preacher. I believe most of the Baptist doctrines that they teach, that the Bible is the infallible Word of God. This is where God preserved his words. This is it. I'm holding. And my job is to read it, try to understand it, and to preach it and teach it to others. So we could talk about different religions, and I did a whole series on why I'm not a Catholic and why I'm not a Muslim and why I'm not a Mormon. You can get all that on our website, drdino.com. Come visit our bookstore. We have a Christian camp here, Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. All free, 140 acres, 17 lakes, fishing, boating, swimming. Science Center, that's 12,000 square feet of cool science activities on science and the Bible. It's all free. Cabins you can stay in. So we want to teach and preach and present information to say, wow, the Bible is true. I've had many people tell me, that you start off saying, wow, the Bible's true, isn't it? Yep. Then about a week later, they sit up in the middle of bed, in the middle of the night in bed. Oh, no, the Bible's true. Whoa, I better start doing what it says. Yeah, you better. So I would take not just Christianity, but a more specific slice is right on most things, okay? So go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Hovind. Very insightful. We've got another question from Zealot. Go ahead, I'll unmute you and you can ask your question. And to anyone else that wants to ask questions, please raise your hand and we'll get to you shortly. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my question is, dog kind came about from wild wolves being domesticated and bred with change over time you call microevolution, but they're still dog kind because dogs produce dogs. Why can't microevolution affect sexual reproduction? So, for example, Chihuahua can no longer breed with a wolf, but only Chihuahuas, effectively creating a new kind of animal or macroevolution.
Well, you can imagine that it would happen if you want, but that's off in SpongeBob imagination land. That's not science. So far, the Bible says they're going to bring forth after their kind. It says it 24 times in the first 7 chapters, and that's all anybody has ever observed. See, the word science comes from the Latin word "ser," which means to know. What do we know? We know dogs produce dogs. We know that. We see it. And we know that dogs, coyotes, and wolves are interfertile. They can interbreed. They normally don't, but they could. So we do not know that cows and dogs are related, and we certainly don't know that dogs came from an amoeba. That would be imagination, fairy tale stuff. Protozoa turned to a mammal. This isn't science. There are 339 recognized breeds of dogs, and you might get them to where they crossbreed them, where you get, like you said, a Chihuahua and a big dog that can no longer interbreed. Well, that's for physical reasons. Technically, you could take the sperm from a Chihuahua and inseminate a Great Dane and produce a completely useless dog, but it could be done. And even if they get to the point where they can no longer reproduce, does not mean they did not originally come from a common ancestor. Well, seeing two dogs that cannot reproduce, but they came from a common ancestor called a dog, that's not evidence that a dog is related to a banana, which is what the kids are taught in school. You got the banana and the dog on a family tree, all going back to a common ancestor. That is propaganda. That's not science. So I got more stuff on that. Okay, dogs, wolves. There's a coyote, Australian Shepherd mix. Wolves in the eastern United States mate with coyotes. I think a 4-year-old would tell you that a coyote, a dog, and a wolf look similar. They're probably the same kind of animal. We would call it the dog kind. A coy dog is a hybrid. Let's see, they've crossbred 40 subspecies of wolf. They might have had a common ancestor called a wolf. See, we're straining at a gnat here and swallowing a camel. they see varieties of dogs. We'll call it the canid family. But see, we got to look at the bigger picture. All this classification stuff that we're doing, deciding if it's a certain species or family or genus or whatever, the animals don't care. They know what to look for in a mate. They don't care how we classify them. We can decide, well, that's a new category, that's a new species. The animal don't care. We have cows up at our North 40 pasture that people come to see on our tour. Cows mixed with sheep and with donkeys. And they wander around together freely, and they don't ever crossbreed. They know what they want to mate with. We may try to figure out, well, what happened? No, there are 19 subspecies of coyote. Okay. Again, they don't care how we classify them. They know what kind they are, and they look for the same kind to make a baby with. I think that evolution, the idea that we see these coyotes and dogs and wolves, etc., they call that microevolution. I think it's a bad term. We shouldn't use that. It's a variation of a dog kind. But that's not evidence for macroevolution that a dog and a banana are related. That's imagination, SpongeBob style. So if you want to stick with science, then we'd have to say, you have to stop right there. Dogs, wolves, coyotes probably had a common ancestor. Dog, wolf, coyote, maybe the fox, I don't know. But certainly not the bird or the snail. They're not involved. They wouldn't go in that group. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up, David, please. Very quick follow up.
Follow-up question would be, so you say that microevolution can't affect sexual reproduction, but that wouldn't be a different kind of animal. What is a kind of animal?
Well, scientists have struggled for centuries to define what a species is. I think the Bible says if they can bring forth, they're the same kind. A dog in a pine tree cannot bring forth. But see, the burden of proof is not on me to prove what a kind is. They're wanting us to have these charts showing that the banana and the dog have a common ancestor. I think the burden of proof's on them to demonstrate that. I admit I have a religious belief. I believe the animals only bring forth after their kind. Only, that's all they've ever done. I believe that. But if they wish to believe something different, they're welcome to believe that. But they don't admit theirs is a religion. They think it's part of science. Here you go. Species, a group of organisms that can reproduce naturally with one another and create fertile offspring. It's a reasonable definition. Species, a kind or sort. Well, there you go. Synonym for species. Synonyms, a kind. Biology dictionary, a group of organisms that have a genetic heritage. Okay, I think the dog and the wolf probably had they have the same ancestor. I don't think the dog and banana did, though. Okay, they bring forth after their kind. It's in the Bible 24 times in the first 7 chapters. Okay, let me get to one thing here. Species, biological species. What's a species? To this day, scientists struggle with that question. Scientific American. Let's see. A debate over species definition is far from over. There are 26 different definitions of species. I'll show you that here, right here. Darwin's book. Ernst Mayr, German ornithologist, said species were not convenient labels, but real entities, like mountains of people. Okay. Species, defining a species. Where's that in here? Should they be considered the same species? The hooded crow and the carrion crow. They can make a baby. Now, the crow and the banana cannot. That's for sure, okay? But if animals or plants with members that are similar and can breed with each other. All right, here we go. This is our North 40. The cows, the zebus, and the horses, and the donkeys, and the sheep never interbreed. You've got 3 new calves born in the last couple of weeks. They're cow. You never get a zeep, or a zonkey, a heap, or a how, or a shibu. It doesn't happen. So if somebody wishes to imagine that if you gave it millions of years, fine, you can imagine all you want, but it's not science. Biologists disagree about the term species. Where is it here? 20 different definitions of species. Okay. Some say there's 20 other different species concepts. What's a species? I don't think they know, and I don't think it matters. The animals know. Turn them loose in the woods, they'll find a mate like themselves. Koala bear isn't a bear, it's a marsupial. So I think that defining what a kind is, again, very similar to a species in most cases, but if you may find an exception to that. And rather than jump on the exception and say, see, the Bible's wrong, no, maybe I think they're straining at a gnat, like Jesus said, and swallowing a camel. Kind or sort and species. It's similar to a species, but we don't really have a rock solid definition of species, and I don't think I can give a rock solid definition of kind. But I believe they bring forth after their kind, and I'm not asking that to be taught in the schools. They're asking their family trees to be taught in the schools. They're asking nothing, they're demanding that the banana and the wolf have a common ancestor. That's on the family tree, I'll show you. This is propaganda. This isn't science. This is a religious belief. All the many forms of life on earth today are descended from a common ancestor. Stop right there. This is a public school biology book on my shelf right here. This is lying. This is imagination. Found in a population of primitive unicellular organisms. So you think a whale came from a single cell creature. This is not only propaganda, it's stupid. No traces of those events remain. Well, then it's not science. Science only qualifies things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Some things are just simply not part of science. But they've mixed this evolution religion into our science for so long, people think it belongs. This is not science. This is propaganda. You have a dog on here somewhere? Yep. Let's see, the dog and the whale and the bird are all related. Wow. Who'd have thought? That's imagination world. I think evolution should be taught in a class of fairy tales, not in a science class. Go ahead. Follow-up question? Did we lose everybody?
Yeah, thank you for
Well,
that, Dr. Hovind. Yeah, we have another audience member who would like to ask you a question. Go ahead, Rubik's Cube, you're unmuted.
Hello. Hey, I just have a question to ask you. Sorry about my mic. Weren't on September 20th, 2021, you were found guilty of domestic violence?
Okay. Sorry about that, Dr. Hovind. Please
what does that to do
reminder
with
to the
anything?
audience members, we're not asking personal questions.
Yeah, it's a rabbit trail, it's a straw man. Hey, it wouldn't matter if I was the worst man in the world and committed all kinds of crimes. That doesn't affect the truth of evolution being stupid. So they try to do this to say, I did something, I didn't do anything wrong, by the way, and it's going to be fine in another 35 days. We'll get it all fixed. But that's an example of how desperate they are to get this focus off of their dumb religion of evolution. It's real stupid to believe you're related to a cow.
Sorry about that. And I've
okay.
noticed the atheists are getting quieter after that utter demolition of the evolution religion. So I don't know. It seems like the atheists better do better, step up the game and do better than this. So I see we've got more questions, however. So let's see.
Hello, Dr. Hovind.
Oh,
Hey, so I have a question. If you're going to say that religion, let's say science is some sort of religion, right? What
no.
makes
I do
okay,
not say science is a religion. Science is things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Religion is things you have to take on faith and believe. I've never
okay.
said religion. I've said evolution is a religion. Keep it straight. Now go ahead.
So when you say evolution is religion, even though that has to do with science, I'm not quite sure the difference, because
Well,
evolution is a science practice.
oh, no, that's where you've been brainwashed to believe that. Science, knowledge gained from using observation, experiments to describe the world around us. Has anybody ever observed an amoeba or a protozoa or a single cell creature produce a cow or a whale?
Sure, but the thing about that is that have you observed exactly how you're using your glasses that you're wearing right now in order to be able to see in the way that you're seeing the screen that you're looking at? Were you there for the production of it?
I'm only following half your verbiage here. You're cutting out or something. Have I ever observed what now?
Like the way that you're able to use your your glasses, your optics, the way that you're using, yes. Were you there when this was discovered in the same sense that you're using what you said before.
Oh, no. There are things such as historical science. We know from written testimonies, people who observe something and they wrote it down. But we have to be able to repeat the experiment. Go to any optical doctor and they can do it. Yeah, they can test your eyes and say, man, you're getting old. I'll be 71 in a few weeks and I need glasses. That's an example of degradation. I was fine without glasses for years, up until recently, probably the last 10 years. And I can see pretty good without them now. But see, this is not evolution. This is the opposite. This is man has a lot of wisdom we've gained, a lot of cool inventions. I love science. Just hate to see evolution mixed in, polluting it. Evolution is not science. Nobody ever sees a cow produce a non-cow. Never. There are 450 breeds of cows. And cows can jump. I agree. And the fact that they can jump makes me think if we gave them vitamins and took them to the gym to work out, here's a cow jumping over a 6-foot fence. So I believe if we gave them vitamins and took them to the gym, someday they could jump over the moon. No. There's a limit how high cows can jump. And there's a limit how far these animals can change. You can get a Great Dane or a Chihuahua, but it's always a dog. And you're never going to get a dog as big as Texas or as small as a flea. Our animal's as small as a flea, like a flea. So why don't we get a dog that small? The fact is, there are limits to the changes we see. They're always still what any 4-year-old would tell you is the same kind of animal. So we don't see this. It's not science. You have to believe and imagine. Long ago and far away, in fairy tale land, amoeba turned to a whale over millions of years, of course. And we can get into the age of the Earth. There are hundreds of ways to show this Earth cannot possibly be billions of years old. It just can't be. And when you take away time from the evolutionist, that's like pulling a pacifier from a baby. Oh, they scream. But I'll do that if you'd like. I can show you some scientific ways that say this Earth cannot be billions of years old. It just can't be. If you need billions of years for your fairy tale, I'm sorry, get a new fairy tale. I'm sorry, I interrupted too much. Go ahead. What else did you want? You still there? Epsilon. Huh. Anybody else?
I
Question?
was sorry. I was literally muted the whole time. Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough. I'll just maybe you should go on to someone else. Just because I was muted the whole time, I couldn't even speak. So I'll let you continue on the conversation. Someone else muted me, meaning.
Yeah, you could ask a follow-up if you want. Okay, he's gone anyways. That's okay. We'll go to another audience member, I suppose. We've got Rami on the stage as well. He'll be helping me moderate. Okay, let's see.
What was the question? I did not get it. Somebody help me out here.
And yeah, there's an audience member, Brutus. Go ahead if you want. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, so you keep mentioning, if you are talking about evolution and in science, you need to be looking at evidence in the real world. You would expect to see something like amoeba being observed as evolving into whales, something like that.
Well,
hang
on, let me break your question down a little bit. I'm telling you, what they do teach in the books is these family trees, and the textbooks do teach that, and a protozoa evolved into everything. They drew a bunch of lines on paper, and this is supposed to be science. We've never seen a protozoa produce a non-protozoa, let alone all the trillions of other changes this chart would require. None of these lines are science. They're imagination. They've got a line between a frog and a bird. That's stupid. I don't care if they believe it or not. It's not science. We never see it. There's 7,371 species of frogs. Probably had a common ancestor called a frog. That's where it stops. These family trees are pure baloney, imagination. And they all say, well, if you let it happen for billions of years, we'll stop right there. It's just, right there, you went outside of science. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, the evidence that they're working with isn't, seeing evolution from species to species. The evidence that they're observing nowadays, at least, is sequence variation in DNA. And so what they're trying to do is explain the patterns of sequence variation that we see. And so that's why they stopped going with the morphospecies, the morphological species, or the biological species concepts, because we learned about inheritance and gene expression and that kind of thing. So how do you explain the patterns of sequence variation that we see?
Well, the chromosomes of any animal, any living thing, the chromosomes are more complex than all the libraries in the world combined. If you took each human, as an example, has 46, except in the gametes, you have 46 chromosomes in each cell. If you unwound them, each one would be 6 feet long. They're a tightly wound up little coil here, neatly packed, by the way. If you took all the chromosomes from one person, I'll show you the quote here. If you took all the chromosomes from one person and tied them end to end and stretched them out, I got it here somewhere. Anyway, it would reach across the solar system twice. Across the solar system, twice. One person, DNA. If someone wishes to believe that that happened by chance, they're welcome to, but that's real stupid. And the fact that there are some similarities between our DNA and other creatures is not proof of an ancestry, it's proof of a common designer. Ford pickup trucks have round tires, so do the Ford cars. Whoa, that's a good design. They roll better than the square ones. So the fact that there are similarities is not evidence for evolution. It may be, but it's not science to say it is. It's just as much evidence for a common creator. I say I don't care if they want to believe that they're related because of similar chromosomes or similar DNA structure. I could say this Bic pen probably has some similarities to other Bic pens. This one has the button down here to retract it. Some have just click it twice on top. Some you got to twist. They're still a pen. They still write, and they're still made by the same company. So it's not evidence of evolution. It's evidence of a good propaganda brainwashing system the kids have to go through. And it's a religious belief to say that these DNA similarities prove common ancestor. They do not. They could just as well prove a common designer. And kids, that's why they shouldn't teach either one in public schools. Probably we shouldn't even have public schools. But if we're going to have them, quit teaching one religion. All they're doing is teaching one religious belief, evolution.
Thank you for that, Dr. Hovind. We got another question from an audience member. EXO, go ahead, you're unmuted.
Yes, sir. I was just like, my question is like, how do you know Christianity is the right religion? Like that's what God himself over every other thing on the planet Earth and all the scriptures and all that other stuff. God said Christianity is the right religion.
Very fair question. I have studied as much as I can. There's certain parts of it I don't understand, plenty of things I don't understand, but so far it answers all the questions and fits all the bills, fits all the criteria that I would have. God himself became a man, allowed them to crucify him, and now his blood pays for my sins. Christianity, real Christianity in a nutshell is, we're God's creatures, but we've all broken his laws. We've sinned. We're guilty. Now what? Makes a sacrifice. Cain brought his fruit and vegetables. God said, no, Cain, I won't take that. Abel brought us a lamb. God said, you got it. Adam and Eve made coats of fig leaves. God said, no. Something's got to die. From the very beginning, the story is taught over and over in 500 different ways so people might get it. That it's a death penalty for any infraction of the Creator's rules. And so that's where my sins are paid for by what Jesus did, not Kent Hovind. Christianity isn't a religion you just act out. For some it is. For me, it's internal. I got born again 5 years ago, February 9th, 1969. I said, Lord, I'm a sinner. You forgive me and save me. And it worked, okay? Millions would testify to that. Probably billions of people would testify. It works. It's an internal change where all political systems are external, controlling their people. Speed limits, police cars, jails, prisons, fines. No. Real biblical Christianity is internal. I want to please the Lord. I wish everybody had that attitude. Now, some of them still are, have trouble and cause trouble, but at least it's better than the alternative. But I'm not demanding that everybody adopt Christianity or we teach it in the schools. So the burden of proof is not on me. I believe the Bible is literally true, scientifically accurate. I believe God made everything in 6 days, including dinosaurs. They lived with Adam and Eve. Man killed most of them, calling them dragons. We could get into dinosaurs if you'd like. There might be some still alive, small ones in Africa and the swamp and the Loch Ness monster kind of stuff. That's a different story. So yeah, I think Christianity, biblical Christianity, more specifically, I think, well, some of the Baptists embarrass me, but I'm a Baptist. I think they're closest to what I think this book says. But if somebody can show me different, I'll change today. Okay, go ahead.
We've got another audience member that would like to ask another question. Do go ahead.
Cool. Can you hear me now?
I barely heard something. What is it?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So I had a question about kind of like the micro and macro evolutionary theories. So there's a lot of studies that talk about, for example, how other species, maybe some primates, have potentially evolved into understanding certain forms of morality, like potentially fairness. And so my question to you is just, do you think that there's any, and you can insert whatever word you want here, but any kind of evolutionary explanation for why some people turn to immoral actions such as criminal acts like tax fraud and domestic violence?
All right.
Well, I'm working tomorrow for my sermon tomorrow. It'll be
Right.
on Genesis Baptist Church about the different races. Where do they come from? And that ties into that with different genetic dispositions. There are certain dogs that are bred to have a particular character trait, gentleness, easily trained, vicious watchdogs. I mean, you ask any dog trainer, there are certain groups of dogs that they're bred specifically to be mean. There are certain people groups that seem to be just more mean, okay? Some are more gentle, some are more laid back. I'll be covering that tomorrow in my sermon. As far as tax fraud, I've always said and always acted out and always obeyed every tax law that if it applies, you should pay it. I've never violated a tax law. They locked me up for structuring, and then a guy did an 18-hour seminar showing the government broke 100 laws to put me in prison. So if you're trying to slip in the back door and slap me in the back and say, Hovind's a tax collector or tax fraud, no, I'm not. I did not break any laws. Type in KentHovindinnocent.net. You watch that first, and you tell me what law I broke. The U.S. attorney that came after me to put me in prison, after he put me in prison, when he did, he spent 5 years investigating, trying to find something on Kent Hovind because of my video number 5, The Dangers of Evolution. When they came in with a SWAT team, they said, get every DVD number 5 you can find, The Dangers of Evolution. This theory's dangerous. That's why they got me. And that same U.S. attorney, John David Roy Atchison, flew to Detroit after I was in prison to have sex with a 5-year-old, got off the airplane, had a doll and Vaseline. They arrested him and put him in jail, and he hung himself. Why don't the guys who call me a tax protester ever talk about John David Roy Atchison, the U.S. attorney that was a pedophile and hung himself? How come they never mentioned that? Go ahead.
Apologies for that, Dr. Hovind. Seems like the atheists just can't reason with you, so they're resorting, some of them, to irrelevant personal
I
attacks.
can handle it.
So,
I'm not afraid of that question at all. I didn't break a single law.
all right, yeah, and I can see that. Yeah, I appreciate that. So up next, we've got Andrew R. I believe he's had his hand raised for a while. I'm inviting him to speak, but let's see here, trying to. I do apologize, everyone. We're trying to. I see the live chat is going crazy right now, so we're trying to get to as many questions as we can.
It would help if I could see the ones that are written out, since my hearing is going bad in my old age, and I'm trying to understand this. But if somebody has a question, you can just cut and paste like my tech guy does here.
Okay, no, sorry about that. We need to bring him on.
And I think
Okay,
we
we could go
discussed
to written questions if you'd like. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
So
we
we've
discussed
got,
doing this every. I'm sorry. We discussed doing this every Saturday for an hour or hour and a half. I'm very willing. Count me in. I'll tell them, get their question ready and write it out and send it in.
We appreciate that very much. Thank you. So yeah, we've got Andrew R, who just came onto the stage. Go ahead, sir. Hello?
Andrew?
Seems like he's having connection issues. We'll try restarting the.
Well, if evolution is true, it should fix itself, shouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good observation.
A little bit.
Let's invite him on again. See if it works out this time. All right. Andrew, are you there?
I guys, I had to leave to fix that. Bring me up. If I could, Kim, I was talking.
This is
Andrew, you're
What is
having
the?
this is
Andrew, you're having
incredibly garbled. I'm not getting any
Yeah.
of this. It's real garbled. Something's wrong.
Let's try. Let's try one
okay.
more time.
Can you
Let's
not
try one more time to.
hear me?
We can't. Let's try
Okay.
moving you back to the audience and try resetting it.
Some of these guys come down to visit Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. We'll put them up for the night. We'll give them the tour of the place, and we can have them sit right here beside me on my show.
That seems
7
like the
o'clock
most
every night
effective.
on Genesis
Yeah.
Baptist Church YouTube. Oh, okay.
Can you guys
Brought
hear
someone
me?
else in. So yeah, go ahead. Okay, so we'll bring on Andrew next
Can
time.
you guys hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Ken. How are you?
Hey, overworked, underpaid. I never complain. No, never complain.
Well, that is the matter of course. I just had a question: how you respond? Because I got asked this question yesterday. To if you're not familiar, I'll read you the verse. But it's 1 Kings 22:19 through 22. Are you familiar?
There's 31,000 verses in the Bible.
Yeah,
I
I
know
know.
a bunch of them. But
The only reason I thought you might be is just because it's a common objection from non-believers. So it's
okay,
about
you're
the
saying
damning
first.
delusion that was sent.
Hang on. Read it again. First Kings what now?
1 Kings 22:19 through 22.
1 Kings 22:19. Heard the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on the right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, "Who shall persuade Ahab that may go fall at Ramoth Gilead?" Okay, so what's the question? I know the passage and the story.
Yeah. So because we often at least in my apologetics, I often say that we can trust God because He cannot lie. Well,
Okay.
if God cannot lie, but in this passage it seems to be they're trying to make the case that God can send someone else to cause a delusion or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say that's a sign they are desperate to find anything wrong, straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. Okay. During warfare, things change. Someone's trying to kill you. The rules kind of change. If someone's trying to break into your house to rape your wife or kill your children, shoot them. Okay. So thou shalt not kill has an exception in self-defense. Okay, if you have to. The Jews are being attacked over there now. They have been for a long time, and they're defending themselves. Okay, the Israeli Defense Force (IDF). So, in that battle, you'll notice the IDF is wearing camouflage. Is that being deceitful? Why don't they wear a bright orange uniform? No, in warfare. This is a warfare thing. God's telling this guy. He said, when you go in there, I forgot who's going to persuade him. And he said, I'm going to send a spirit to persuade him to come out and fight the lying prophets. I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. So God's going to deceive the bad king's prophets to believe something that isn't true. I think the fact that this is their best they've got for a shot at the Bible's wrong is, again, straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. It's okay, perfectly okay, to deceive your enemy. And that's what camouflage is all about. That's what smoke screens are. I mean, that's what warfare is. So I think they're desperate by the time they get to that point.
Thank you.
Does that help? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
For that, Kaisan. For that, Dr. Hovind, we'll move on to our next question. So this is in the text chat from His Excellency McChicken. He asks, do you subscribe to the idea that God wants segregation amongst humanity given the events that transpired in the Tower of Babel? Is interracial marriage okay?
Well, there's only one race, the human race. So there's no such thing as interracial marriage. As long as you got male and female, it becomes a different story. But people take this to extremes. I tell people, I've never seen a black man. Never. This is black. Okay. I've seen dark brown. I've never seen a white man. Here, I'll show you. This is white. I am not white. I've never seen a white man. Now, we use that phrase, black man, white man. I understand, and I may use it too once in a while, because that's the current vernacular. But technically, we're all shades of brown. This is the real Kent Hovind right here, and I get out in the sun a lot and give tours of our place. Tomorrow morning, matter of fact, I'm covering this topic. Where did the races, we call them races, where did the races come from? What does the Bible teach? And is interracial marriage okay? Well, there's only one race, the human race, so yeah, you can marry anybody. I think you're going to create problems. You might create social problems for your children in some parts of the country, like down here in Alabama. So it might be socially unwise to do that, but it's certainly legal, and it's certainly morally okay. Certainly no scripture against it, but you just may create a problem for your kids. That'd be something to consider. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for that, Hovind. Yeah, we've got another question from an audience member that wants to ask you directly. Go ahead, Void.
Hey, I want to ask, you say there's this line that exists where microevolution stops and reaches its limit. And I'd like to ask you if you have any proof or evidence that this line exists, or if there's any animals that are at this limit and they can't advance any further in a certain direction, evolutionary speaking.
Well, I think, let's take the example of dogs. They have now developed 339 breeds of dogs. Here's the world's biggest dog, Zeus, 343 pounds. English Mastiff, okay? Is that currently is the record. Now, is that the limit? I don't know. Somebody might get a 400-pound dog someday. But they're never going to get a 10,000-ton dog, okay? There is an observable limit so far. And these are the ones the thing would never survive on its own. You couldn't get enough, you got to feed it. So the changes that man has made in the selection that man has made has created dependency where the animals are now dependent on us. So this is not really natural selection. This is artificial selection. The world's Zeus was 3'8", okay? Here's the currently world's smallest dog, 3.8 inches tall. That's pretty small, okay? You think they'll ever get a dog as small as a flea? There seems to be a limit. Have they reached the limit? I don't know, but they're probably getting close, okay? Has man reached the limit with this 100-yard dash world's record? There's a lot of world's records haven't been broken for a long time because nobody can break it. I think, I don't know what the number is exactly. Say it's 9 seconds for the 100-yard dash. Okay. Is anybody ever going to do it in 1 second? No. Okay, so there is a limit. Have we reached the limit? I don't know. Probably getting close. They're never going to get a dog 8 miles high or a half-inch tall. So I think it's intuitive, and it's certainly, as far as science, it's observable. We do seem to run into a brick wall. You always get a dog.
I think you are confusing like the word dog with this limit. Like there is no limit where the word dog becomes something else because you're confused by the word dog. Like I could argue that a bear is breaking that limit between bear and dog, but we just call it a different name once it reaches a certain point in difference between this line of species.
Yeah, you could argue all you want on that, but there are 8 different varieties of bear, black bear, brown bear, polar bear, sun bear, grizzly bear, and they might have had a common ancestor called a bear. But if you wish to believe with these family trees that bears and dogs are related, that's not science. It's a religious belief. We observe bears make baby bears. That's been observed. We observe dogs make baby dogs. That's science. That's observable. And we've observed that they seem to run into a size problem. Dogs, you can't seem to get below 3.8 inches. You're certainly not going to get a half-inch tall. So anything outside of what we can observe is imagination. This whole family tree is imagination. SpongeBob. That's all it is. We don't observe any of this. Here they have the dog coming from an amoeba and related to a frog and a butterfly. Do you believe a dog, a butterfly, and a frog have a common ancestor? Simple yes or no.
So yeah, we've moved them to the audience because we're trying to get as many people as we can. He's had his follow-up, so yeah.
Yeah, let me finish on this. The textbooks do teach that the dog, the butterfly, and the frog have a common ancestor. Here it is. This is right from a textbook. I got hundreds of them around me here. Biology textbook, earth science textbook, physical science textbook. That's what I taught 15 years. This isn't science. That's all. This is imagination. What else they have related? Oh, and the birds. Anybody can see the similarity between a dog and a bird. I mean, come on. This is real stupid, okay? This isn't science. That's all. They wish to believe it? Great. Oh, and the octopus. Yep. And humans. Yeah, we're related to frogs also. Okay.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that, Dr. Hovind. Thanks for the question, Void. So now we'll move on to Kroma Alfine, who wants to ask a question. Go ahead. Going once.
Hey, Dr. Hovind.
Hello.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're fine. Go ahead.
Great to speak with you. Thank you for having me. I have an entire laundry list of questions.
One at a time.
But I understand. I'll respect your time. I'll just be blunt and lay my cards on the table. I spent 40 years as a young Earth creationist, and when I started like trying to educate myself about my faith and my beliefs, and I started looking at biblical cosmology, one of the biggest challenges to my faith was when you can pull up like what the picture the Bible paints of the cosmos and the earth and everything, Britannica, I mean, pick any source, and it gives this picture of the waters below, the earth fixed, on fixed pillars and unmovable in the heavens, and the dome of the firmament above, the windows of heaven letting in rain. And I realized that the biblical literalist position would commit me to things that just seemed untenable to me, to be blunt, frankly. And at that point, I was basically forced to kind of abandon biblical literalism at that point, because I don't believe in like a flat Earth or a geocentric model, which it seems like a biblical literalist interpretation of Scripture would commit me to. And to me, that's just untenable. I mean, I hear young earthers make fun of flat earthers all the time, and it's.
Well, I think you're right that geocentrism and flat earthers are wrong, and I think it's silly and it's not true, and it's certainly not biblical. The Bible does not teach that. The Bible is written, most of it from a human perspective. If we were going on a trip and you're in the back of the car and I'm driving, and you say, Brother Hovind, would you pass me a bottle of water? I reach down, I pick up a bottle of water, and I pass it back to you. Did the bottle go forward or backward? Well, it depends. Compared to us in the car, it went backwards. But if we're driving 70 miles an hour this way, the bottle just reduced in its forward speed. So for me to take a bottle and hand it back to you in the back seat, we would all say he passed the water back to the guy in the back seat. That's what happened in the car. We're not outside the car observing this. So it's perfectly fine for someone, since all the observers are on the earth, for someone to say the sun stood still. Because from our observation point, the sun stood still. Technically, the earth stopped spinning. I understand how that works, and you can calculate your velocity at your latitude if you'd like. But the earth is spinning, and the sun, the whole thing is moving. The sun's moving around the solar system, and the solar system is moving through space, and we're spiraling around. I've got all that, okay? Taught earth science 15 years. But it's perfectly fine to say the sun stood still because all of the observers are right here. Just like it's perfectly fine for you to say, would you pass me back a bottle of water? You would not say, Brother Hovind, that bottle of water in the front seat's going 70 miles an hour. Would you reduce the speed to 65 for a few seconds so that I can get it back here? Nobody thinks that way. Nobody says those things. So I think you are correct to reject the flat earth and the geocentrism, but you threw out the baby with the bathwater. The Bible clearly teaches, if you look at the dates, the Bible clearly teaches God made the world about 6,000 years ago. I got my chart here showing the biblical dates. Adam is 130 when his son is born. The numbers are all right there, Genesis 5. That brings you up to the flood, and the people lived to be 900. What it says. And there are legends from all over the world of a golden age when man used to live to be 1,000. Why would cultures with no Christian history have the same legend of a golden age? Man lived to be 1,000. After the flood, and there are hundreds of flood legends around the world, people only live to be 400, then 200, then 100, and today not many make it to 100. We have biblical history up to Joseph with the dates given, and we know Joseph was the vice pharaoh in Egypt, and people have figured out which pharaoh and which Egyptian dynasty, and adding those two together, you come to about 6,000 years for the history for the whole world. And there are all kinds of scientific ways to demonstrate this earth can't be billions of years old. The Bible clearly teaches 6,000, and I think that's correct, okay? I wouldn't put an exact date, but close to 6,000. When you look at scientific things like the earth is spinning, I don't think anybody argues with that. Well, somebody might, the stationary earth, I disagree. The earth is spinning, okay? At my latitude, 31 degrees north, we're going 886 miles an hour toward the east. The earth is spinning, but the earth is slowing down 1,000th of a second every day. Google leap second. We have a leap year, but they have a leap second. Every couple of years, they have to have a leap second to get the clocks back on schedule because the earth is slowing down. And we know why it is slowing down. It slows down from the Coriolis effect. It slows down from the tidal friction, the tidal bumping up against the continents, the internal friction, the lunar drag. There are known scientific reasons. It is just a fact of life. The earth is slowing down. Okay. Well, that means it used to be going faster. No problem if the earth is 6,000 years old. But you want to get the earth back in time, imagine it going faster 1,000th of a second every day and go back billions of years. Wow, the earth would be spinning so fast, it'd be flattened out like a frisbee and people would be flying off. I'm sorry, it is not physically possible for this planet to be billions of years old. It's just not possible. Forget the Bible. It's not scientifically possible. The moon's going around the earth, but the moon's getting further away, 1.5 inches a year, 1.6. We're losing the moon. This has been known for a long time. It's called the lunar recession problem. They did all the math on that, said, well, now hold it. If you brought the moon back 1.6 inches every year, there's a law called the inverse square law. If you half the distance, you flip it over and square it, it quadruples the attraction. At 1/2 the distance, it's quadruple the attraction. So the problem becomes exacerbated the closer you get. And they say 1.2 billion years ago, the orbit would collapse. Earth moon cannot be more than 1.2 billion years old. Well, then why are we teaching the kids it's 4.6? Because they need 4.6 to turn their frog to a prince. That's why. I could scientifically, without the Bible, demonstrate this earth is not billions of years old. I think I could scientifically demonstrate this ink pen is not 5,000 years old. I don't know when it was made, and I don't care, but it's not 5,000 because Bic Corporation wasn't created till after World War II. I could find the date plastics were invented. I could find the date Bic became a company. I could say, wow, this pen is less than 60 years old. I could prove scientifically it's less than 60. It's not 5,000. So they're making a claim that the earth is billions of years old. I'm sorry. The spin of the earth says, no, it's not. Get a new theory. Go ahead.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time and your response. I don't want to belabor the point. I have no problem. I mean, I can be agnostic toward the science, but I mean, I've had a vested interest in like biblical archaeology and stuff, and it just seems, I'm familiar with the Usher chronology, and several proposals have been put forth to try to reconcile that. There may have just been problems in the way that it was dated, trying to reconcile some of these seeming problems, because we have like biblical archaeology of Jericho from like 10,500 BC that's dated to like 10,500 BC according to some of the latest expeditions. And that just seems very problematic when you have biblical archaeology itself that dates older than the dates given in the Usher chronology.
Okay, you understand, you realize you're starting with the assumption that the 10,000-year date is correct and the Bible is
Okay,
wrong.
baby. Okay.
Now, that's a faulty
Yeah.
assumption. Okay, how do you know? I'd like to see how they found that number 10,000. Because I would disagree. I think you can find lots of people argue about the age of things. One thing, in 1830, they started teaching the stupid geologic column. It does not exist anywhere in the world. They said the layers are different ages. And so they date these layers for Jericho, for instance, and stuff like that. I'll show you here. Let's see. I got so many things open on my PowerPoint here. The geologic column does not exist anywhere in the world. They made this up in 1830. There's no such thing as a Jurassic age. No such thing. The layers can't be different ages. Where's all the new material coming from? Outer space? 1830, they made up the idea that the layers form this way and the top layer's younger. No, the layers form sideways. It's called hydrologic sorting. Watch my video number 6 for much more on that. You can take these little sand art things. You can buy them at $10 at Walmart. You flip it over, and as the sand falls, it automatically makes layers, strata. The layers different ages? No, they're all in here at the same time. If you shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card younger? No, they're all the same age. So that there is no such thing as a geologic column. There's no such thing as a Jurassic period. All over the world, I'll show you, thousands of petrified trees are found standing up, petrified, running through the layers. Why are we teaching the kids the layers are different ages? This is dumb. But it's been accepted science for a long time, therefore it must be true. We'll go to a Muslim country and it's accepted science that Muhammad was a prophet. Go to a communist country, it's acceptable, everybody believes communism's good. And go to America, everybody believes the geologic column. Doesn't make it true. Petrified trees in the vertical position are common. Nova Scotia has hundreds of them. There's a coal mine in central Alabama. A friend of mine works up there, right there. He said they find them all the time. Petrified trees running through several seams of coal. The biggest, so I think you better, instead of doubt the Bible with this Jericho find, you better doubt the date on the Jericho find. I think you'd be wiser to do that. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you again for your time and your response. I appreciate it.
Look at that. Is that you, Joe, doing that? Hydrologic sorting. This video they made, some French guy with a name this big, fabulous video. Type in experiments in stratification.
I'm sharing that, Dr. Hovind. I want to say hello and thanks for being here. I stood in for you when you had a debate one time. Something came up and you weren't able to be there. I'm a fan of yours, have been for many years. It's nice to talk to you again after so long.
Yeah, that video, experiments in stratification, shows clearly the layers form sideways, not vertically. I keep asking them, if the top layer's younger, where did it come from? Outer space? They're real silent. You would think they would stop and think, but I doubt it. They love this geologic column. So they can say, well, this fossil is 10,000 years old because it was found in this layer. Why do you know the layer's 10,000? Because we found a 10,000-year-old fossil in it. Complete circular reasoning. It's sad that they do that. I got it in here somewhere. Circular reasoning. We use the circular reasoning. We use the rock to date the fossils and the fossils to date the rocks. American Journal of Science. We've known this for 50 years. No geologist has ever bothered to think of a good reply. They're arguing in a circle. Age of the rocks is determined by the organisms they contain, and the age of the organisms are determined by the layer it comes from. This is stupid. Tell them I said so. Okay?
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, hey, yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Hovind. Yeah, sorry, I had to step up for a bit. Rami might take over momentarily if I do have to step out again, but I believe we have Andrew would like to ask a question, if his mic is working, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll give it another shot. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, jeepers. Yeah, I was talking to you earlier, Kent. I apologize. Something happened with the room we were in. But yeah, I'd definitely like to talk to you again. I sent you a friend request, but I have a question for you. Do you take it that it's the case that God cannot lie, that it's impossible for God to lie?
It became garbled at the end. Do I think it's impossible for God to do what?
To lie.
Well, that's, I said, in warfare, things change. Is it wrong to kill? Yes. If somebody's breaking into your house to shoot your family, shoot them, okay? So it's different in warfare. So it's for God to deceive people in order to in a battle. Since, for instance, I think that we'd have to really examine that more carefully to say, is it okay to wear camouflage? I mean, look at the British in our Revolutionary War, bright red coats. Pretty easy to shoot at. They figured out, oh, this ain't working. Let's get some camouflage. Is that lying? Is that saying I'm not here? All warfare is like that, and I think that's justifiable. So, I think the answer would take have to be cautious to give a solid answer to that question. Is it actually lying? Is in any sport when they fake right, fake left, is that lying? I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually the same example I used. Doing a double fake in basketball, are we going to call that a lie? And I do take a lie to be different than deception. But
You're breaking up. You're breaking up too bad. I'm not hearing this. You're breaking up again.
Sorry. Can you hear me at all?
I hear part of it, and then you fade off. Are you going on speakerphone or something? Or
No, I'm on these earbuds. I apologize if this doesn't work. I'll just mute up. But yeah, I was just basically saying that I take deception and lying to be two different. And but I just don't know what the moral significant difference would be. If God cannot lie, which Hebrews and other scriptures say he cannot lie, or he does not and cannot, then how is it the case that he can deceive and not be morally culpable for that in such a way that
fair question. Yeah, it's a fair question. Now, keep in mind, this is a rabbit trail away from the real topic of where's the evidence for evolution. And so, if I happen to say I believe the Bible is true, there are some things about it I don't understand yet, but I'm not asking this to be taught in the schools at taxpayer expense. So the burden of proof's not on me to find all these little answers like that. It's an interesting dilemma. I'll study that one some more. But meanwhile, that doesn't prove the Bible's wrong. It just shows we don't have an answer yet. And it certainly doesn't prove evolution is true. There's no help for the evolution model, even if the Bible is wrong. We still see dogs produce dogs. That's all we see. So this is mixing things here that, again, straining at a gnat, swallowing a camel. There is no evidence for evolution at all anywhere. And so rather than pick at the Bible and say, is there a contradiction? Is this wrong? Did God lie? It doesn't matter for this topic. That is, people have argued for centuries over little things in the Bible, and they probably will continue. But I'm not asking that to be taught as science in a tax-supported school system. They are demanding that their dumb religion be taught at our expense. I object. I'm going to stay focused on that. I've asked several people have asked that one about God lying in these different passages. I haven't ever, that's not my ministry, so I don't get into that, defending every verse of the Bible. I'll find probably somebody has. Probably Matthew Henry did back in the 1700s. Can you look at that, brother? Matthew Henry commentary, Did God Lie? And see what he said about it. He was a genius Bible scholar, but I'd look at that. There's a lot of commentaries. I'm sure somebody's already answered that question. But again, just the question is diverting away from the problem atheists have, of claiming we all came from an amoeba. Oh, look at the squirrel. Distraction.
Yeah, I apologize, Ken. If I can just say this last thing, I apologize. I didn't know that it was on a certain topic. I thought this was like an AMA. I'm kind of new to this whole thing on Discord.
I'm not getting this again.
Oh, I said I apologize. I thought this was like an ask me anything, and I'm just new to this whole Discord thing, so I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But one
Well,
thing,
Andrew, you can ask me anything, but I don't know everything. Okay, and that one I don't know.
For sure.
Fair question.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm a Bible-believing Christian as well, and I'm conservative on my views, and I have a high inspiration of Scripture. So,
Andrew,
I wasn't trying to catch you.
Andrew, since many have asked this question in the last 50 years, 5 or 10 people, probably 10 people, why don't you find a good answer and start a ministry on it? That's a good point. I'm real busy with creation evolution. I don't think I can take much more.
I gotcha. Totally fair. I have another question, but it's up to you guys. On topic, if you guys want me to ask it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Is there any kind of silver bullet that you have, Kent, to show? Because I don't really know much about evolution and creationism. Like, I haven't studied those. Like, that's not my field, so to speak. And So is there any, do you have like a silver bullet to show that the dating methods are not good that we use to date things?
Well, a silver bullet for the dating, since 1830 up until 1950, for 120 years, the dating was done by the geologic column. Then in 1950s, Willard Libby invented the carbon dating method, or there's I don't know how many different, potassium argon, rubidium strontium, lead 208, lead 206, maybe there's 7 or 8 radiometric dating methods. All of them suffer from the same problem. You got built-in assumptions. And most people that study this say, yeah, we don't really know this. We've opened one more. Gee whiz, I got everything open on my computer here. Joseph, how many things can I have at the same time, you think? We're going to find out. Okay. In my seminar part 7 of my series, which you can get the whole thing for $50, go to drdino.com or call 855-BIG-DINO. That's our phone number. I cover this in more detail. I'll just hit it quickly here. What about carbon dating? If you walked into a room and you found a candle burning on a table, and I asked you the question, when was it lit? I don't know, it was burning when I got here. This is the problem with carbon dating. You dig up a rock and you find it has some carbon-14 that is decaying. Oh, so here it is, you have a burning candle. When was it lit? The empirical science would say, let's measure it. Let's get a micrometer and measure it to the nearest bazillionth of an inch, okay? And we all agree, nobody argues, it's 7 inches tall. So we publish it in a peer-reviewed journal, how we measure that candle. It is 7 inches tall, exactly. Nobody argues. Now let's watch how fast it burns. We time it with Olympic stopwatches, and 500 people time it, and we over and over and over, and we publish it in a peer-reviewed journal. That candle is burning 1 inch an hour, and nobody's arguing. Now I'm back to my question. When was it lit? I don't know. I can't tell you from that unless I make some assumptions. Now we got a problem. How tall was it? 8 inches tall or 10 miles tall? Has it always burned at the same rate? See, radiometric dating would not have been feasible if they hadn't done the geologic column first. They knew that back 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Okay? Fossils have been and still are the best and most accurate method of dating the rocks they are coming from. They don't use radioactive decay to date fossils. So the assumptions for any of the dating methods are, has the decay rate remained constant? I think we've got plenty of illustrations that it doesn't, okay? There are things that can affect the decay rate, okay? And do we know the initial content? And has there been no contamination? So the bad news for radiometric dating, problems with radiometric dating. There's all kinds of articles about this. Students are some assumptions, and contamination is inaccurate. So anyway, watch my video number 7 if you get the whole series. You can get it for $50, return it when you're done, and get your money back. Can't beat a deal like that, okay? I wouldn't call that a silver bullet, but I think when you point out the obvious, not only the assumptions, but let me add one more word, the prejudice. They want billions of years. So they like these dating methods. It wouldn't matter if you proved them wrong. They like them, okay?
Thank you for that, Dr. Hovind. I do believe we only have time for just a few more questions. So anyone else that would like to ask a question? We have a couple more, I see. I do believe Nephilim wanted to make a brief comment. Very briefly, Nephilim, is there something that you wanted to add to this conversation?
No, not really. I would ask Dr. Hovind if he would mind mentioning how the discovery that DNA is prescriptive functional information that's linguistic and algorithmic, how this proves that life is a product of a designer of unfathomable greatness, and how that's an incredible argument against evolution, that the features of living things are produced by this amazing package of information, and that nature can't create information. If Dr. Hovind would explain something about that, that would be cool.
I think the more medical science gets into this and realizes the unbelievable complexity of the DNA code. When you make a copy of a computer code, a program, if there's oftentimes one mistake, and it stops running. And that's only a 2-bit code with zeros and ones. The DNA, the chromosomes, is a 4-bit code, which makes it a lot more complicated than a 2-bit, CATG. So the complexity of the human chromosome is mind-boggling. One person's DNA is more complex than the whole internet system of the world. The whole world's internet system is primitive compared to one person's DNA. And your mama made a copy of that while you were growing inside in every cell in your body. And every cell of your body to this moment is making copies of that code pretty flawlessly. If there's a bad enough mistake, the cell dies. You get enough of those, a mutation, the whole body dies, okay? So mistakes in copying this code are not going to change an amoeba to a human. It's just not going to happen. Chromosome 2 we talk about, but if you'd like, video number 4. The lies in the textbooks where I get into that. Yeah, and the DNA code is not only really complicated, the way it's wound up together is stunning. I mean, you'd almost think it had a designer if you didn't know better. I'll show you a picture. There you go. It's not only like a twisted ladder. The more you twist it, now it starts looping on itself. Keep twisting a rope and it'll start making loops, and then loops of loops, and then loops of loops of loops. To pack all that chromosome information into a little tiny spot, 46 of them in one cell in your body. And it unwinds, makes a copy of itself, and winds back up. How anybody with a functioning brain cell can believe that happened by chance baffles me. I hate to call them stupid, but I can't think of a better word. You believe that, you got brainwashed. That was designed. We were designed by an almighty, all-powerful God, who fortunately loves us and is willing to forgive us if we accept his sacrifice for us. You don't want to accept it? Okay. Up to you. You face God. I'm going to face God one day. And my record's clean by the blood of Christ. Everybody else is going to face God. He's going to open up everything you've ever said, everything you've ever done, everything you ever thought, and read it for the world. And the whole world's going to say, wow, he's guilty. You're righteous, God, to cast him into hell. God, you are holy. You are righteous. My record's clean. Wiped off. Okay. Delete. You can all have that. Want to talk about it? Call me 855-BIG-DINO. I'm extension 3. Take calls all day long, half the night. 855-BIG-DINO. I'll talk to you about it. Say how you can get to know Jesus Christ as your Savior. Okay, any more?
I had a question from an atheist earlier. They were basically asking, how do we address the fossil record of like human beings? How would you answer him, Dr. Kent?
I would say, first of all, there is no such thing as a fossil record. Fossils, probably trillions, certainly billions, maybe even trillions. If you want to count the microscopic ones like diatomaceous earth, then certainly there are trillions of fossils. When you find a fossil, like this petrified clam, notice two things right away. First, it doesn't talk. Secondly, there's no date stamped on it. We have to put our date on it. When did it form? We have to make up a story of what happened to it. How did it live? When you find a fossil, any fossil, you cannot prove it had any children that lived. You certainly can't prove it had children that lived that were different. No animal today produces children that are radically different, turning into something else. No animal does that. So why do we think a fossil could do it? That's not science. So I think there is no such thing as a fossil record. There certainly is no fossil record of apes turning to humans. Man has constructed these stupid family trees and put them in a line that they think they happened in, and that's just drawing lines on paper. Look at that. The birds, the reptiles, all had a common ancestor. There's no fossil record. There's a lot of fossils. I think it's evidence of a flood. Because fossils don't form unless animals are buried quickly, certain conditions. Noah's flood provides the perfect conditions to form all the fossils. How many animals died in the last 5 years in the world? Billions. How many turned to fossils? None that we know of. If they're not turning to fossils today, and yet we find fossils by the billions, we've got to stop and think. Maybe there was a flood that did a worldwide flood. We find fossil petrified clams on top of Mount Everest, 450 miles from the beach, 5 miles high. Clams don't climb mountains very well. How did it get there? I don't think the water was over Mount Everest. Mount Everest wasn't there during the flood. The mountains arose at the end of the flood. See Psalm 104, or watch my video number 6 of my series where I talk about that. The mountain ranges nearly all follow the coastline. That's pretty interesting. Rocky Mountains follow the Pacific, Appalachian Mountains follow the North Atlantic, Andes Mountains follow the South Pacific. I think the crust of the Earth was broken up during Noah's flood, and sections of the crust, and it's still broken up. We got fault lines everywhere, but they would tilt and shift, and if one place lifts up a mile, and this one goes down a mile over, say, 1,000-mile plate, the water's going to run down, make an ocean here, and make a mountain range here. The flood is the only explanation for the geology we see of the world. Grand Canyon probably formed in a week, not millions of years. Take the tour of Dinosaur Adventureland. We teach all this stuff here. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I do, Kent. How are you?
Hey, good, doing good.
Awesome. So I've asked this question before about what you use to determine the age of the Earth, and your answer was the Bible. So outside the Bible, what else are you using to determine the age of the Earth?
Okay, well, one of my evidences for the Earth being 6,000 years old would be the Bible. Let's take another one here. I've got in my seminar part 1, let's see. We look at things like the salt in the ocean. We know the oceans are 3.6% salt, okay? Nobody argues about that. We know that the evaporation hydrologic cycle takes out only the water, leaves the salt behind. So the mineral salts wash off the ground into the oceans eventually, and the oceans are getting saltier. They could have gone from fresh water to 3.6% in less than 5,000 years. Well, why aren't the oceans saltier? I mean, we do have real salty bodies like the Dead Sea and the Great Salt Lake. Why isn't the ocean 20% salt? Why is the ocean salty? Well, let's see. 70% of the Earth, I'll cover all this on video number 1, but I would say I'll just go to my home slide. I go through.
Wait, I'm sorry. How is salt going to help with the age of the Earth? I'm not following.
Well, they're indicators, scientific indicators. The ocean is not billions of years old. That's part of the Earth. There are scientific indicators as far as stalactite growth. They're not billions of years old. We know how fast they grow under different conditions. The magnetic field of the Earth is declining in its strength. Our magnetic field is getting weaker. Okay, well that indicates.
Yeah, you're really. I like what you say. You say a lot of stuff. You sound really intelligent. However, you're not really giving an answer as to determining the age of the Earth being 6,000 years old. So thanks, I appreciate it. Good try.
Let me try one more time. The Bible dates add up to 6,000. There are many scientific indicators that indicate less than billions. I don't know as far as any scientific indicator is 6,000. There may be some. We know that the oceans are getting saltier. We know that the ice cores, the deepest ice core they've ever drilled, I cover all that in video number 1. So none of the scientific things I show, well, maybe the Sahara Desert is getting larger. They know the desert is growing. It's a process called desertification. Okay? Well, total land surface of the area, I cover all this. The desert is growing. And the area outside of it is called the Sahel. They look at and measure how fast it's growing and say, wow, 6,000 years ago, Sahara Desert was covered in grassland. Well, that would fit the biblical view that 4,400 years ago there was a worldwide flood and the desert didn't start growing until after the flood was over. Archaeological evidence tells us 11 to 5,000 years ago, Earth's slow wobble transformed the desert. So there are lots of geophysical indicators like this that indicate, like I said with the ink pen, I don't know when it was made, but I know it's not 5,000 because Bic wasn't even around and plastics weren't even around. So I can take different scientific indicators like the spin of the Earth, the oil pressure. You drill down, they hit oil that's under pressure. How long would the rocks hold that pressure? They're saying less than a few thousand years, the pressure should have leaked off. The sun is burning up its fuel, 5 million tons a second. Well, if you go back in time, the sun was bigger and heavier, more gravity, start sucking the planets in. You can't go back billions of years. Now, the sun doesn't give me a number 6,000 if that's what you're looking for. I told you at the beginning, the Bible gives the number 6,000. The rest of them give indications of, anywhere from less than 10,000 to, certainly less than billions. So that, again, the burden of proof is not on me to prove the Earth's 6,000 years old. I believe it is 6,000 years old. I believe that is, nobody's been able to disprove that. What evidence do you have that says it's more than that? What could you prove? I don't think you can prove anything. So I cover this, the human population. The human population of the Earth in 1999 was 6 billion. In 1800, it was 1 billion. At the time of Jesus Christ, World population growth, let's see, Google it, well, population growth curve. People have studied this for years. So at the time of Jesus Christ, there was only 500 million people in the world. You could start with 8 people getting off of Noah's Ark 4,400 years ago. This chart shows modern humans 160,000 BC. I mean, nobody figured out how to make babies for 160,000 years? Come on, I've seen some real stupid people figure that out, okay? But time is the pacifier for the atheist and evolutionist. Population reached 1 billion in 1804, this book says, Earth Sky magazine. 3 billion in 1960. Population 6 billion, now it's 7 billion. So the population growth curves all show us not billions, that's for sure. And that's just human population. But I sense that you don't really want an answer, but I told you, I'll tell you again. The Bible says 6,000, lots of scientific indicators that certainly could fit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hovind. I do believe we've exhausted the time you've so generously allotted for us. However, if you'd like to continue, of course, we'd be happy to, go the extra mile if you wish, of course. And also, Dr. Hovind, we'd like to extend an invitation for you to join a room which is exclusively made for you, which you could use at your leisure and moderate entirely at your discretion. You can interact with anyone you'd like in the server. We have quite a bit of we have almost 17,000 members in the entire server, so it's entirely up to you. So what would you like to do? Would you like to sort of close this up and maybe go into other rooms or the room that...
I need to close up at an hour and a half if I can. I've got so much going on here besides this. I do lots of other shows, including my own on Genesis Baptist Church. So I can't get involved in all the chat rooms for the rest of my life. But anyway, so yes, I stand, my position is clear. The Bible is true. God made the world in 6 days. It's the only way it works. You got plants that need sunlight and plants that need animals to pollinate them and animals that need certain plants, symbiotic relationships. It only works if they're made within a day or two of each other. I think the Bible is true. The world is 6,000 years old. It was destroyed by a flood 4,400 years ago, just like the Bible says. And we produce a lot of videos on that topic, lots of them. You can go to our website, drdino.com, DRDINO, or call us 855-BIG-DINO, or come visit us, Dinosaur Adventureland, Lenox, Alabama. Oh, yeah, I'm glad to help. But more important than all these arguments is you're going to die. Everyone listening is going to die one day. Then what? And I would give them Pascal's wager. If I'm right and you're wrong and you're an atheist, you're in trouble. Now,
and we'd be happy to, yeah.
If there is no God, I haven't lost anything. I've had a wonderful life. I'm enjoying myself. I live, honestly, and I enjoy life. So even if there's no God, I win both ways. Pascal's wager. Can't lose. Anyway, thank you so much for having me on. We'll do it again next Saturday. Get all the atheists fired up. Get your questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us again. Once again, Dr. Hovind, it's been an absolute pleasure. And all right, folks, that was the last question. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But yeah, thanks to everyone who joined us, asked questions. Don't forget to become a member of PNR. Stay tuned for more exciting interviews, debates, and discussions. Once again, Dr. Hovind, absolute pleasure. And we thank you once again for your time. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you, Dr. Kent.
Okay, tell him what. Oh, bye.
All right, for everybody in the room, we're going to do the after talk, the after show down in the Christian chat. So everybody, if you want to, go ahead and move on down to Christian chat. We're going to have some action there. All right, see you down there.
Let's go. We're going to have the atheists, respond.
That's right. Let's hear the atheist response and let's see, let's bring it.
when the Earth formed. So it'd be interesting to see why God preferred uranium-238 over uranium-235. Like, why would God prefer one type of isotope over another? Why would he make it such that it would look like the Oklo reactor, the Oklo natural reactor that happened 2 billion years ago would just suddenly occur? Like, why would God want to deceive so many people?
Well, the issue with what you're saying, if I recall Dr. Kent's argument, was that you don't know for how long that uranium has been depleting for. Like,
yes.
Again,
Let me try it.
there's no way for you to know.
Wait. Let me try it again.
You so completely do not understand radiometric dating by
Let me
making
try
that
it.
statement.
Well,
Let me try